Hello and welcome to the Social Club podcast. My name's Dearden-Phillips, and with me today, my very special guest, is Dr. Grant van Ulbrich. Dr. Grant, I'm going to call him from here. He's got an amazing story, and also he's got an amazing kind of offering as well to the world in the form of something that he calls Scared So What. And we're going to hear all about Scared So What fairly soon. But Grant recently spoke at our conference, and he was one of our most highly rated speakers that day. Really powerful, really lovely, and we've got him here today. So welcome, Grant, to the Social Club podcast. Good to have you with us.
Oh, it's so good to be here, Dr. Craig, and thank you so much. It's awesome to be with you. Such wonderful people, and you're too kind with the accolades for the talk.
It was good. It was wonderful. Well, I want to start this really simply, Grant. Where did life start for you? And what was what was it like being Grant growing up? Tell us a little bit about sort of Grant's story. How did you where do you land in the world? You're from the States, right?
Yep, originally from the States, and wow, you're going to take me back a few years. But yes, I think the best way to sum it up is, have you seen the movie The Wizard of Oz?
I have, many times.
Yes, we love that. So it's Dorothy in Kansas and Toto. Well, that's where I'm from, the center of the United States, Kansas.
I'm in the middle. Yeah.
Right in the middle.
And I suppose, we've all got our mental image of Kansas as this kind of, big sort of flat place with, that grows lots of stuff and is a little bit conservative and a little bit middle American. What was your life like growing up in Kansas?
It's interesting. You're absolutely right. Kansas is known as what's called the Bible Belt. So it sits on just the outskirts of the Bible Belt, very deeply religious. Mostly of the Baptist and Presbyterian, Lutherans, etc. Very political. It's a right-wing state in the United States, and I grew up in the 70s. So early childhood was wonderful. When we're really young, great family setting. I have amazing parents that I still enjoy today. I'm proud they're still with me, and a brother. And both of us grew up to serve in the Navy, but there comes a time when, you hit those early teens and you start to come into your own and who's your identity. And that's for me when I started to realize that my identity did not align with my surroundings at all. And so being
on for that in a little bit, won't we?
Yeah.
And I guess it's interesting that you joined the Navy because the sea is a very long way from Kansas. So I guess to do that, you had to leave.
Absolutely. And it was one of the best things, to get out of that environment. Again, I don't want to paint a bad picture of Kansas, but just the times, there was not such openness about people's gender expression or ideas or ideals. It was very much that if you were of the LGBT community, you needed to remain in the closet, deeply in the closet, and not show it, or you faced retribution. And I did, and many times. And it was actually through the encouragement of my parents. My father served in the military, my grandfather, uncles, all of us. So it was a way to get out and see the world. And you knew it was a guaranteed ticket to do that. But it was also, there were dangers there because when I went into the Navy, it was illegal to be gay.
Because I think we're roughly the same age. And back in those days, I remember very well that there was a huge hoo-ha when Bill Clinton kind of came up with a new formulation, which was don't ask, don't tell.
Absolutely.
Which is it seems really mad and outdated now, but at the time it was seen as progress. But I guess, was that your green light to join, or was it not really?
I was already in.
Yeah,
I was already in when he put that law into place. And if you can imagine, the ships were not co-ed back then. So I was on an aircraft carrier with 6,000 men, and there were no females. And it was when the ruling came through and the law came through, it was the last chance for the Navy to discard all the undesirables before the ships would pull in and start to become retrofitted and become co-ed. So, and that's exactly what happened. I served 3 years, 6 months out of a 4-year contract got back to San Francisco. And as soon as I did, after serving our duty, that's when I was discharged.
Yeah, and you're on a very famous ship, the USS Carl Vinson, which is I think still in service, isn't it? I think
it is still in service, and that's the one that Bin Laden was taken onto. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you served in the first Gulf War, if I've got that right. Have I got my timings right?
At the end of it, we were called Operation Southern Watch. So we deployed over and we defended the no-fly zones with the aircraft carrier.
Yeah. So you're in the Navy, and then obviously they found out about you.
Yeah.
You're out of the Navy, and I guess that was the first big change in your life, which kind of has fed into the kind of, it was in a way the beginnings of Scared So What, and it was a cataclysmic change for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't know it at the time, but as I talk often with people, your personal experiences change you, and these are the foundations that formulate your values and your identity of who you are. And although coming out in Kansas was a massive change, being forced out of the Navy was just a crisis. Literally at the front base of the San Francisco Bay Harbor, I'm homeless. What do you do? Where do you go? How do you thrive? How do you start over with $5 in your pocket and a bag of clothes on your back?
What did you do? I can just imagine that.
Yeah, I did what most people do who are homeless, and you go find the nearest bridge, and you put your clothing and etc. underneath it. You start to go to restaurants where you can get in, and you can bathe and shower and refresh yourself. And I just took the initiative that I was not going to let this pull me down. I had a place where I could store things, and then I went as for every single type of application I could do. The nice thing is that people respected being from the Navy. They didn't ask you what your discharge status was. They just knew that you served, and they liked that, especially in a military town like San Francisco. So I got a job fairly quickly. I was homeless for about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, until I got the job, and then I remained I got a room, and it just started, to climb up.
So yeah, and if I recall, you had a dishonourable discharge from the Navy as well. They didn't even give you an honourable discharge.
It's called actually an OTH, an other than honourable. So you have honourable, other than honourable, and then you have dishonourable. So it's right in the middle, and it's for as they kind of used to say back then, you're the misfits. We don't know what to do with you. It wouldn't stand today at all in today's military.
Yeah, gosh, it feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't really. It's kind of bonkers, isn't it? So then, obviously, your career as a civilian started, and you worked for a bit, and you built up. You built up really nicely in San Francisco. I guess that must have been a fantastic.
Well, it was freeing. You're absolutely right. It was freeing to be myself. I was a hard worker. I just came literally immediately from a military mindset of yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, 3 bags full, do what you're told to do, and do it to the best that you can. So I really appreciate and respect my naval training, because that's exactly what helped me to get up. And I got a great job, continued to work up forward, and about 3.5 years later, I was a regional director in sales and apartment communities, meeting good friends and good colleagues, bought my first condo, first car, furniture, etc., and doing just fine. So I was able to, through self-determination, to get through that massive change.
How old were you at this point, Grant? Is this just before you were 30 or just after 30, that kind of time?
Yeah, mid to late 20s.
Yeah, and then fate struck again.
It hit me again. So personal change, again, you will never escape from it. It's the one thing that binds each and every one of us every day across the globe, and even in space. If you're flying out there, you can't escape it. I decided to go celebrate with some friends and colleagues because life was great. We were going very well. I had a very good job. I had a lot to celebrate, and we went skiing in North Lake Tahoe. And as my friends took me up the mountain and they jumped to the left at the end of the lift, it was my first time ever to do it, and I got knocked off. And as they turned around, I was gone in a split second. And I went headfirst over a cliff, 20-foot drop into the snow.
Well, every time you say that to me, I just kind of, something goes through me, a wince of awful pain, thinking just,
No, you don't feel it. That's where shock comes into play. I didn't even realize it until I woke up at the bottom of the mountain with the medics. And I said, "Am I okay?" And they're like, "Look at your shoulder." And I looked left, and my arm was down 4 inches. I completely severed this whole side. So yeah, personal change was hitting me hard, and I didn't realize you're in such shock where this is going to take you. But
lucky to be alive, but in the US where there's no NHS and nobody's put you back together unless you pay for it yourself.
yeah, because what happens is there, as you rightfully said, there is no continuing medical. You have state disability, which, when you're on a 6-figure salary and you go down to $700 a month, you're not affording anything. So literally your medical bills start to soar for your portion that you have to pay. I had to have 3 surgeries over the year, 2 titanium plates and 12 titanium pins put into my left shoulder. And the 3rd surgery was to remove everything. The 2nd one was to adjust it all. Again, homeless. I had to sell the house, sell the cars, sell the furniture. And this time, some friends rehomed me, and I again took up a room to start over again.
So bankrupt, starting again.
I did go bankrupt, yeah.
And this time back to sea.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're right. I was reading the newspaper after my 3rd surgery, and the San Francisco Bay Chronicle said, "Now hiring all new American crew members for Norwegian Cruise Line America." And so I took an entry-level job, the port and cruise lecturer, telling the guests what they're going to do, what they're going to see all around Hawaii and how to make the most of their voyage. I wasn't making hardly any money, but I was happy. I was alive, a good respect for life. And actually, the funny thing is I found that camaraderie that I had on board the ships with the Navy as well again. And I've been with the cruise industry ever since.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your rise through that industry, because, obviously you started at an entry-level job, but you're now doing what? Just to give us the audience a bit of a feel for what your current role is.
There you go. Well, the cruise industry is incredible. Talk about fostering people. When people say that peace is not possible, we in the hospitality industry actually beg to differ, because it truly is, and we see it every day. On board a cruise ship, you'll have anywhere from 60 to 90 different nationalities working and living together, and nobody's there to have a bad time. They're all there having a wonderful time. From countries that are considered hostile, in the cruise industry, we all come together, and it's a peace. And it's about what you do. You're recognized for who you are, be who you are. And if you do a good job, you can climb easily. And I think, again, that's where the military really trained me. And I did very well. All kinds of positions throughout my career on board ships, about 15 years at sea, and then coming shoreside. And in 2018, my supervisor said, "Will you move to Europe and will you start up sales transformation? And will you help uncover and create a sales manual for our business, for our entity?" One didn't exist. And I spent about 4 months researching to find, well, we don't have that. So I had to go to school in my 40s. And here in London is Middlesex University with Consalia Sales Business School. They have the first master's in science for sales. And that's what I went into. Unfortunately, as you know, with you, I continued on with my doctorate with you as well.
Yeah. That's just for the audience. Yeah, myself and Grant met on a doctoral program where we were both basically bringing together our life experiences and trying to figure out what we'd learned and what the world might learn from what we'd learned as well. Yeah. And that was brilliant. That's how we met. And so you were kind of really heading up sales for this significant business by now. And most people in that position would kind of, you get to 50, you're head of sales. You are literally cruising in your career.
Yeah.
But you have different thoughts because I guess
you're so right.
A little bit about what happened next, because this is where we get into scared. So what? This is where we get into the big change that you're in your life from where you've been career-wise to probably where you're going. So
exactly.
That.
And it started, Craig, in the master's program. So the master's was about leading sales transformation and how to use a global sales leader lead that, and how do you facilitate that within your organizations. And I work at Royal Caribbean Cruises International. So we are one of the leading cruise entities in the world with over 62 ships, a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded corporation. And in the master's program, I learned about all of the organizational change models. And that is where I said, you know what? With my life experiences, these are not correct. They're not accurate. And you can't use these. And I can't use these for my people. And my professor said, why? And I said, if you look at them all, they're prescriptive. Yeah. They say that you will use this on your people in or workforce organizations, and people at the end of it will magically accept the change. Yes. I didn't accept being homeless. I didn't accept being ousted from the military. I didn't accept falling off a cliff. And I didn't accept the homeless scenarios or the bankruptcy, to where I actually challenged and said, no, there is another alternative. And I don't accept what you're giving me at this moment. Yeah. So I asked them, I said, where's the change model for the individual? Yeah. Because organizational change, as you just taught us, has a very high failure rate. Why is that? Yeah. And I was focused on that. And they said, perhaps you should create your own model. So that became the crest of my master's research.
Yeah. So just to recap and check my understanding. So, yeah, there's a whole world of literature, isn't there, about changing organizations.
Yeah.
If you summarize it basically says that, organizations go through sort of some kind of arc of change where people kind of are shocked by it, then they oppose it, and ultimately they accept it, and and a new curve of organizational life begins. But your but here was, well, does it? Because people, change programs run into the sand all the time. They often fail. And this kind of new stage after the change, there isn't actually much out there that speaks to the individuals involved in that change or helps them through it. So you were basically saying we need to append these change models with something that accounts for how we actually deliver change with people.
You're absolutely right. It needed a bookend, and it was missing. The biggest gap that was there that we found, and I actually, in my research, interviewed some of the world's leading change management leaders who have created these models that global entities use today. And I asked them, I said, why does organizational change have such a high failure rate? And they said, because the individual's not included every time. Yeah. A human being has the ability to accept change, be neutral to change, and reject change. And often in leadership, we don't focus on that. We just focus on assumption that they will be on board. And if they don't like it, then they can just leave. So there's a big gap, and that's the individual. And I said, we could make these much more successful, because I believe in these organizational change models, if the individual was supported. And that's where I actually built the model for the individual that would complement the organizational change facilitation.
Got it. Yeah. So you, in a way, you're not replacing change.
No, it's enhancing.
You're bookending them and saying, look, if this is going to work, we have to attend to this human dimension of change. And
exactly.
And this is where Scared So What came into life, doesn't it? So just give us a little bit of a sort of feel for what Scared So What is actually all about, because this is all based on science, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And the way the mind works and your body reacts to change. So you're right. And this was the heart of my literature. And you talk about a perfect test case to put the research in. We went into the pandemic. So I was actually very happy, because everybody was riddled with change and fear, and it was a perfect place to test the model. But what we've done was, with Scared So What, is we looked at two factors of what happens when a change occurs. And the first one is fear, stress, anxiety, and confusion, where your mind goes into and your body reacts as well. And you'll appreciate this. It doesn't matter if it's a positive change or a negative change. If you're getting married and you're standing there and the groom is standing next to this lovely bride, he's riddled with almost paralysis, breathing heavy, sweating, perspiring, just all the different ranges. It's supposed to be the happiest day of his life, but yet it's still personal change. The same thing with a negative change. It's the amplification that your body does to the different types of change, but you're still feeling these metrics to say, what are you going to do? You need to do something about it. So since we have not been taught how to manage personal change, what we do is we dive into assumptions.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to be. So scared is the first part. And what we want you to do is we want you to stop your panicking, and we want you to start critically reflecting on the change that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by the change? Are you conflicted by the change? Or do you champion it? What actions could you do? This brings in information so you can make an informed decision, not an assumptive one. And then are you receptive, or do you reject the change? Because you can reject change. That's okay. But so what are you going to do? You don't want to be left without making your plan. Then you explore further options, and finally you're going to make a decision. And in this decision moment, you have three options. One, you can make a favorable decision and you like it. Great. So what will you do? The second is, it's an unfavorable decision. I don't like it. This change is not for me. That's fine. So what will you do? And the third one is called indecision. And that's where you're stuck in the middle. And you've been there when you've ever said with a change that happens, I don't know what to do. Somebody tell me what to do. And that's that initial panic, and you're pausing. And you're there because mentally you haven't done the work to find information.
Yes. So because at our conference, right, I think you asked the room, who here has been taught how to deal with personal change? And there were no hands, I don't think. No, we never taught it. So this is a tutorial on
every podcast, every webinar, my TED Talk, everywhere I go, not a single person has been taught how to manage personal change. And isn't that amazing?
It is amazing, because obviously change kind of it wreaks havoc in our lives every so often. Just to use a little bit of a worked example. So we talked about the pandemic and the fact that it absolutely paralyzed your industry.
Yeah.
How would let's say, for example, I'm on a cruise ship, and the cruise ship industry has stopped, and I'm one of your employees.
Yeah.
Where does Scared So What kind of fit into my world? Let's just play this for a second. So initially, I work on one of your ships.
Yeah, you're right. And we actually had to use this in real life. Human resources came to me and said, Grant, please help our salespeople and our operations people with Scared So What. And I started doing classroom sessions, just ad hocly with people. So in the cruise industry, in that situation with the pandemic, we literally had to shut down offices and let people go. So you're faced with losing your job. What do you do? And we started to teach Scared So What. And so my first part was to get people to embrace their feelings about the change. And I utilized the model and the methodology. There's also a quiz that comes with it. So you can sit in your own private time, answer 30 questions, and it will visually show you what you're feeling. And that's the beauty of Scared, because it pulls it out of your mind. And now it gives you to a visual scoring system that you can actually have a dialogue with and share with others. And so then we taught, so what? So what is your strategy, your options, your way forward, your hope, or do you know how you're going to do it? What actions will you take, and how do you take ownership? And after we taught this to people started coming up to us and saying, well, I'm no longer afraid. Here's my so what. This is what I need from you.
Yes.
It gave them clarity. It gave them less panic, less anxiety, allowed them to process the fear of change and get past it with an informed decision. And that's the beauty of it. So while we thought everybody was going to check out, they actually came to us and said, no, I'm not afraid anymore. This is what I need from you. And they went back to work.
Yes. So to summarize there, what it sounds like is that if you can get people through the emotional sort of washing machine of emotions and feelings and panic, then they're in a position then to revert to you and say, look, boss, I'm either embracing this change, I'm either rejecting it, but I've got a plan, and this is how you can help me with this. So you're into a much more healthy place with an employee,
especially for business, and even if from an employee to a supervisor discussion, we've also found where people say, I'm not on board with this change. But now that the supervisor knew Scared So What, they were able to say, well, where are you in this? What actions have you done? Well, I've done this and this. Oh, did you not know this? Let me help you with this. Yes. You're uncovering the situation versus just making assumption. And then we found supervisors were providing more information, which are action points, so that the person could make a different decision. So that's usually typically what you find in organizations. A supervisor gives a direction with a change. This is the way we're going to go. But if you don't focus on the individual and they can't process their feelings, you might assume and make the wrong decision. And what you often find is it's a miscommunication. Yes. And had you communicated clearly in the right place, people would be on board with the change.
Yes, yeah, because obviously traditional notions of leadership are very much around, this is where we're going, we need to follow transactional, and if you want to succeed here, you just need to suck it up and follow me.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, you know what? That's very important. You said that you just need to suck it up and follow me. When we asked the question earlier, have you ever been taught how to manage change? This goes back to your youth, all the way back, because our parents haven't been taught how to manage personal change either. So when you go to your parents and you have a change situation, the best they can say to you is, "Oh, Craig, get on with it. Oh, Craig, you'll be okay. Oh, Craig, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. You're stressing too much." That doesn't make you feel any good. Again, because your mind and your body is saying there's something wrong here. I don't have the information to process. And so you go away and you go right back into that state of assumption and anxiety.
Yes.
And that transition into leadership, just what you're saying. You're going to do this because I said it. You're going to be fine because I said it. But you're not processing what the human mind and body thinks or feels.
Yeah, so in a way, what this is all working towards, it sounds like, is that, every individual needs, to thrive, to be successful, to be happy, we need to exercise agency, don't we? And we have to access that. And in a way, we're not trained to do that. We're often socialized actually not to have agency or expect it. And therefore we can run into roadblocks quite quickly because we either, we can't cope with agency or we can't find it. And our work situation won't always lead us to exercising agency. So things get stuck, and that doesn't just hurt the employee or the individual. I guess it hurts the organization because their change program starts to fail. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why you see so much in literature, about change failure. And even then, there's so much myths to that. There's a common misstatement, it's a misquote really, that 70% of change management fails. But Dr. David Wilkinson, he's the chief editor of the Oxford Review and a former police instructor. He believes thoroughly in where's the evidence. And when you see these cited by these reputable business entities and researchers and journalists, you'll never see a reference because there is no reference to that 70%. What he did was he traced it all the way back to Dr. John Kotter, who's created some of the world's leading models on change. Yeah. And what he truly said was, a large percentage of change fails. Some of the change is successful, but most of it just links and tilts towards failure.
And I'm whizzing back in my mind to MBA days. Did Kotter say that something along the lines of, when you're doing change, you've got to sort of try and leave as much of the change up to the individual to kind of shape, because that will help them process change. And so is Scared So What a kind of practical build on that insight, or is it something slightly different?
I actually attribute Scared So What to a change leader who I hold in high esteem. She's no longer with us, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yeah.
And she created the 5 stages of grief, her change curve. Yes. And that inspired me. There's also a model that's very famously used in organizations and business called the SARA curve. Now, people will attribute it back to her, but I had the joy and privilege to actually interview her son, president of her foundation, and that's in my book. I know you've read.
Yeah, he's carrying on her legacy in the...
Exactly, and I won't spoil. You've got to read the book, but there is a big surprise about that model that you won't expect. So definitely try to get the book to read that. But what he said was, he goes, Grant, my mother was trying to facilitate a conversation. When she created her model, there were actually 13 stages. but people couldn't understand it or digest it. So she just wanted people to start to be able to talk about it. What you've done with Scared So What was to make the individual included, and you're facilitating that conversation as well. And this should bridge the gap between organizational change models and that change success that is necessary.
Yeah. So if I'm a chief exec of an organization, commercial or social, listening to this, and I know I know that the world's changing around me, the business is changing. I know I'm going to have to drive some significant change in the organization. Mm-hmm. Why should I call you, Grant? How are you going to help me? Tell me how you're going to help me.
The best way to help you is I'll ask you an open question. Do you 100% want your change to be successful?
Yes. But I've got hundreds of staff, and they're, it's about them as well, right?
And if you do, which I hope the answer is yes, the literature and the research out there firmly tells you are lining up against a high failure rate. And they've also indicated, along with my research, that the reason why it fails is because the individual is not included. I have the tool that will include the individual to make sure that you're being an open, diverse, and inclusive change methodology. And then once you get all of your people on board with Scared So What, the app and the processes that we have available and the tools for you to use, then together we can put an organizational change model. And now you have brought all of your people inclusively in on the change.
And yeah, so basically, I've got that enhances my chance of the change I know is necessary. Bringing people with me, not losing the people I need, retaining the people I need.
You can't afford it. You think of the hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars that organizations pour into attrition, hiring people, getting the best talent, etc. Why on earth would you try to deny a humanly possible function of feelings and expression and understanding and say, oh, we don't need to include that? Yeah. Of course you do.
I know. It's interesting, Grant, because, I was on a call earlier today with somebody, and just talking about UK public services, actually, which are remarkably, they're like 1950s US corporations. They're run by hierarchies. They're dominated by sort of fear and command.
Yeah.
And they kind of wonder why people leave or quietly quit. In their millions in this country, we can't find people who want to come and work for our health service or our public services because their mental models being run of change are entirely devoid of any acknowledgements of the human factor at all.
Yeah.
in delivering change. And this lesson hasn't really been absorbed by government, certainly in this country, and in government-based institutions. Perhaps a bit more in the private sector, do you find?
Yeah, agree. Private sector, yes. And I find the private sector businesses, large corporations that I'm working with today are more open to this, and the leadership readily identifies that we need to embrace this. But you're so right. We think of here in the UK, the NHS and the government functions, etc. If we could get Scared So What in there, then all of a sudden you are championing a whole generational transfer of knowledge, because you're giving people the ability to learn how to embrace the changes that are happening to them. And then by making informed decisions, and they learn how, it becomes a cognitive skill set that allows you to no longer make assumption and take control over change. That has a massive potential for different outcomes in all of our lives.
Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word generational there, and we were reflecting on our own parents before, and because in a way, I think a lot of today's public service organizations almost occupy a kind of a set of cultural norms, which in the generation, perhaps the generation just behind us. I'm Generation X. I suspect you are too.
I am too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The generation just behind us and the one behind that have extremely different norms and expectations around the way things need to work for them. And I suspect that the organizations, when these people become organizational leaders, that is going to influence the look and feel of organizations generally. the public sector isn't there yet because
Yeah.
the only leaders are our age and older. You don't get many younger ones, but when you do, it's surprising how different it is, the culture. You do see a very different approach.
Well, and it's amazing what you said, and I've had to adapt to make sure that I could put Scared So What where it meets that generation.
Yeah.
So what I've done was I put Scared So What into an app. So now you can actually manage personal change in the palm of your hand. And just like you said, yes, our generation, we're embracing Facebook. We're starting to get into social media, etc. But the younger generations below us, they're well ahead of us with social media, etc. Time spent on phones. But I just had a meeting this morning with University of Westminster, to where I'm going to start teaching Scared So What there. Middlesex University has it as well. And part of my passion for Scared So What and a leader of it is I will give it to university/education for free so that we can transform a generation. But the younger generation, if you meet them where they are, which is the applications, the app world, then they're very adaptable to learn. And there in the app, they can learn what is personal change. They can take a quiz whenever they want. They can take as many as they want. They can see the visual results of their change and build their own plans in the palm of their hand. So if you think of the changes that we face in our generation, imagine them. They don't have the loyalty of staying with an organization for many years. They don't value it. They see rapid rise and rapid change. And how do they embrace it? They're hungry to do it. And this is a way to teach them you can make better decisions if you utilize this methodology.
Yes, yeah, because obviously, that generation is probably a more anxious generation than us as well, because the we were raised in prosperity and the expectation of continuing prosperity, and a secure place in the world in a way. We've reached a kind of a position in life that gives us some comfort, but around status and wealth as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a given. That's not a given.
It's not. Well, even in my life, twice I've lost all of that.
Indeed, yes.
Imagine, it can happen, and people are far worse off than me. God bless them. I don't know how, but I can empathize with them.
Yes, yeah. Your life has been like snakes and ladders. You get all to the end, and then suddenly there's been a sort of you slither down again.
There you go.
And have to go back. Exactly, and. We're coming to the end now. I just want to kind of give people listening a sense of how they can find Scared So What and how we, how they can progress.
Absolutely.
So just tell us a little bit about the resources that are available to people.
You've got it. Absolutely. So it's very simple. The name says it all, scaredsowhat.com. Mm-hmm. That is my homepage, and that's where my business lives. We have the app, which you can get in the App Store or the Android Store. It's free to download. We're also building a professional version that will come out in November for organizations and entities that way. There's my book, Transforming Sales Management. Everything's on the website. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I very much am engaged there, as I am with you and all of your team members as well. So let's stay together. And if you would like me to come in and try to help you to make change more successful, we can definitely do that.
And you have a TED Talk, which I've seen.
I do have a TED Talk, and as of today, it's at 919,000 views.
Oh, wow. That's not bad.
We're almost to 1 million views.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. And to find that, how do people just find that? Just so it's
easy. You just type my name in on YouTube.
Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich.
Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich, and it'll come up.
Hey.
Or Scared So What. Yeah, you'll find it.
So what? Right. Fantastic. Well, it's been a massive pleasure having you on. It was great having you at the Social Club conference as well. It was a big session, that, and I know people really enjoyed it, and I know you enjoyed meeting all of our people too. So thanks so much, and good luck with Scared So What. I know we're trying to kick some doors down together, which is fantastic.
We are, and we will. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of your support and your kindness, and I really champion Social Club. Cannot wait to become a member as well too.
Oh, you like that. Right. Take care, Grant. Thanks a lot. Speak soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.